Welcome to the Maximize Business Value podcast, brought to you by Mastery Partners, where our mission is to equip business owners like you to maximize your business value and achieve the exit of your dreams, whatever that means to you. With insights gained from over 100 business transactions, we share real-world strategies, lessons, and expert advice to help you build long-term, sustainable value in your business. Each episode is hosted by one of our Mastery Certified partners. They're seasoned experts who've helped countless business owners navigate the complexities of growth, scaling, and building value. They bring first-hand experience, actionable insights, and a passion for helping you build a business that thrives. So let's dive in.
Welcome to the Maximize Business Value podcast. I'm Kim Bentson. I'm a business owner myself and honestly figuring out a lot of this right alongside you. Today's topic is one I've definitely wrestled with in my own business. How do I actually know what's creating value and what's just taking up my time? Because if you're anything like me, you're busy. Things are moving. You're making decisions, many decisions every day. And it's not always clear what's really moving that needle. So let's bring in some help here. I have some Mastery partners, certified partners. I have Dave Casey with us today.
Howdy.
Howdy. And this year, we're bringing real questions from real business owners and putting them in front of our certified partners here at Mastery Partners to help all of us get clear answers. So if you've got a question on your mind, you can submit it at masterypartners.com and it might be featured in a future episode. So go check that out. All right, let's get into today's question. This one actually came in through the website and again feels very familiar. How do I assess what's actually creating value in my business and what's just wasting my time? Because I think a lot of us are busy, but busy doesn't always equal valuable. So if I'm looking at my business day to day, Dave, how do I even begin to separate what's creating value from what's just activity?
Wow, this is an age-old question. I think every business would be much more profitable if they solved this one.
Right?
And it's so easy to do the non-essential things because they're more fun sometimes. The thing that I think that when I hear that type of question, the thing I think of most often is key performance indicators or KPIs. And does what I'm doing, am I achieving, increasing, reducing, whatever against a particular KPI? The challenge is, as the business owner, you kind of feel like you own all the KPIs. Right? Even though you may have other people in your business that are responsible for different things. And I know that in terms of time management, it's always been a struggle for me. And you get to the end of the day, what did I accomplish? Where could I have done better? Things like that. So to me, that's a constant struggle. That's never going to go away. But if you're managing yourself to KPIs, just like you ask your team to, I think that's a starting point.
Yeah, it's funny when you were answering it, I thought, I remember that presentation Dave gave on KPIs and how essential that is, because data doesn't lie.
No, unfortunately, it doesn't.
Unfortunately, it doesn't. And I was just thinking about another client where they were attending networking event after networking event after networking event to drive business. And I think you recommended they start tracking that and what comes from that, like how many, contacts and how is it really driving business? And it really forced them to cut down the number of events they were going to, because you here in Dallas, you could fill your whole
Oh,
40-hour, 60-hour
easy.
work week with events.
I
Uh,
really thought about that last year. It was weird. There's an event in Dallas it's in the M&A community, the mergers and acquisitions community. It's a big event, happens every year, and I usually get invited to it, and I attended it last year. And I didn't even compare notes with Tom Bronson, who is the owner of Mastery Partners, and and we both showed up at the same event, so we're both there, and we're we talk to each other briefly, but we're not there to see each other. We're there to network. It's a networking event, and we went to the first presentation. After the first presentation, we kind of met up again, and I said, "What do you think?" And he goes, this is non-productive for us. This
yeah,
is there's a bunch of people here in our industry and they're all kind of job owning each other, but it's not doing anything to move the needle forward in our business. So we both left at lunch. We decided we'd had enough. So, but it was weird because it was and I think you have to guard against that. You'd have to it's as opened with, I mean, the easy things are the fun things to do are sometimes not the most productive things. And
yeah. So I think part of the challenge is most of us don't actually know where those gaps are. And, the KPIs would help measure where those gaps are.
yeah.
Do you think that's where the transition readiness assessment comes in to help acknowledge the gaps?
Yeah, it's certainly what it brings to light a lot of times is how much the business owner is participating in all these different things. We start talking about operations. So who's the head of operations? Well, we have an ops manager, but man, frankly, I've got to stay on top of them every day. Okay, so you're really the ops manager. And that person's kind of managing your time, right? So those are things that pop out when we do the transition readiness assessment. It could be on the sales side, it could be on the technical side. My business was a technically oriented business. So a lot of people in our industry kind of came up that way. I didn't. I came from the sales side and then actually joined forces with a guy that came from the finance side, and we formed a company but in a technical world. But we weren't technicians. I was fairly technically astute, but I wasn't a programmer. I couldn't build anything technically. But we managed technical people, and it was so many times in a business, if the business owners founded the business because they had a passion for it, if they're an HVAC tech and they love that world, they just don't like working for the company they're working for. They strike out on their own and form their own company. It happens every day. It happens in every industry, it seems like. So sometimes you're so passionate about the industry or the process or the product or the company that you're not looking at, is that really what I need to be doing day to day? Um, just because I'm a really good programmer, should I be in there programming or should I have a staff of people programming for me? That type of thing. So that's probably the one of the toughest things for business owners, entrepreneurs to get past. You know.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. Most owners aren't doing things wrong. They just don't have clear visibility or clarity for what actually drives value. And I know that assessment really creates that heat map.
Yep.
I've had it in my own business. It's really clear what I need to focus on,
Hmm.
um, and where I'm not, hitting the mark there. I know you've given a transition readiness assessment to several business owners. Tell me about what's their reaction when they get these results?
You know, most of the time it's, yeah, yeah, you're right. I admit that, sometimes they're very insistent that they are not doing that. I'm not in the nuts and bolts of my business. And then you can just ask a couple of questions and they will, like naming a product or deciding on colors for your brand or things that are just um, important but not important to the business owner,
Right.
that they shouldn't be doing, I guess is the deal. So, but oftentimes we usually tell people at the beginning of a transition readiness assessment that much of the information, if we ask 400 plus questions, much of the information that you get back is stuff you already knew, and some of it came to light when we were doing the Q&A, but sometimes they just, yeah, I know that we don't have an effective sales team, or we don't have an effective sales leader, and maybe I'm the default sales leader, but I'm not the best, and certainly I got other things to do as well. So we're not getting that job done the way it should be. So there's that type of thing, and then there's also the reality is, when you start a company, you're wearing all those hats, and prioritizing. Your priority is to win the first customer and then collect the first invoice, and then build upon that to where, okay, we're collecting invoices pretty much every week now. So now we can hire some more people, and we can, everybody starts from ground zero usually, and it's making those transitions along the way where I used to do this job, but now I need somebody else to do this job. Even if I love it, even if it's my favorite thing. Maybe being a CEO of the company is not my favorite thing, but it's what I need to be doing right now. And so, as you know, I've been involved for more than a decade now with a group called Biz Owners Ed, I describe it as a boot camp for business owners. And it's a 10-week program where we take business owners through every aspect of their company. It almost parallels the TRA. It's everything from your formation papers to any kind of exit strategy you've done and everything in between. And it's so interesting when I had a friend of mine that was in the IT business. I knew him from the IT business. I recommended him for the class. He signed up. He got accepted. Great little business, almost 10 million in revenue. He had a team of 20 some odd people, um, did software development, did business analysis, did lots of cool stuff. Neat company. And he goes through the whole program, and I was meeting with him afterward. What'd you think? I usually when people complete that program, they're like so charged up. I got all these things I want to do to make my business better. And he goes, you know what I figured out? I'm not an entrepreneur. I do not like doing this. I don't like all the presentations about entrepreneurs like running toward the fire, and they want to do this and they want to do that. That's not me. I don't want to do any of that stuff. He said, I really enjoy the technical side of my business. I don't enjoy everything else about it. So,
Yeah.
and he found somebody to buy his business. He took over as the chief scientist of the combined businesses, and he's happy as a clam. It took that class to really find out that he was spending a lot of time doing stuff that not only did he not do well, that he didn't really want to be doing. So yeah,
Yes, I can identify. I'm a reluctant entrepreneur. I am definitely not the typical.
yeah.
Uh, the E-Myth Revisited really resonates with me. um, but I have to say, when I got my TRA results, I was a little depressed.
Yeah.
I have been busting my butt thinking, oh, I'm doing okay. And there was definitely places where I was like, oh, I didn't even realize
Yeah.
that I needed to make a different decision there.
Yeah.
So once the shock of the number, and it's kind of like when you go to the doctor and you get all those results, you're like, oh, I need to do some work here. So then once the depression subsided, I was like, I did have clarity about
Yeah.
what I needed to change and what I needed to focus on to really kind of shift those numbers. And now, I have a KPI to kind of go back to our KPI reference. I have a
Yeah.
KPI document that helps me track if I'm making progress on those just by those answering those questions. Um, so do you see that happen when business owners get that clarity? What's usually the first thing they change?
You know, usually I ask them to examine, like, just kind of keep a diary. I mean, of go through a whole week and just say from if you start at 8 in the morning, from 8 o'clock Monday morning to 5 o'clock Friday afternoon, what did you do? Who did you talk to? Um, did you make out a goals list and did you check off items on the list, or did you just kind of wing it? Or did you have a plan that just got sidetracked, one thing after another? And what did your week look like? And so one of the presenters at our Biz Owners Ed group is a guy that's presented, I think, from every year from the beginning, is a guy named Tony Jerry, and he's an executive consultant. He consults typically with the CEOs and presidents of some of the biggest corporations in America. Charges an incredible amount of money to do that. Very I'm in awe of the business he's built. Let's put it that way. And his three words, and he says it over and over, are clarity, focus, and execution. And just in the statement you made, you used two of them. That you've got to be clear about what it is you're going to be doing. Then you've got to focus on that, and then you've got to execute. Now, sometimes it's you executing, sometimes it's making sure it's executed, and finding others to do that. So that to me, I mean, there's a lot of other ways to say that. I mean, Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan, it's, who, not how, there's all these different things. Like, I don't, I know what needs to be done. The next question is, am I the right one to do it? And then kind of move that needle or where it needs to go. So there's all that, but I think doing that 1 week assessment of where, what actually did I spend my time on? Did I get sidetracked? And I think about that when people, I network all the time. I try to meet with people and discuss what we're doing and find out what they're doing and figure out if there's a way we can help and so on. And many times that's like, let's have coffee or let's have lunch or something like that. But it's interesting. Tony Jerry tells a story. I mean, he's got every minute of his time accounted for, from like 4 in the morning to like 10 at night, and way more than I could handle. That would be drain all my energy to just even track it. But somebody will call and say, Tony, I would love to have lunch with you. And he said, great. We haven't had lunch in a while. What do you want to talk about? Well, I know so and so, Tom Bronson. I'd love to meet Tom. I haven't met him, and wonder, I'd love to talk about that. And Tony will go, you know what? I can introduce you to Tom Bronson. I'll do a warm email introduction, do that, and then, because frankly, I'm pretty much tied up. I work out at lunch. That's when I do my workouts, because I can be listening to my audio book, and I can be doing two other things and working out and getting a sandwich. He's like got everything down to a science, right? And so it's just like slicing your time up and using it the best way you can.
Yeah, I heard you mention too before, like, you're working with a client, and what was going to take, it was like whatever was going to take the longest, get started on that, and then a couple of quick wins to help you feel, some momentum. So I think they were doing cash accounting, and so that's a big, that needs a runway.
Yeah.
And then some clear things to our people and processes, like just having processes documented. That's not a ton of brain power there. That's just something you got to focus on and get done. But
even AI can help there.
Even AI can help there.
Yeah.
But what changes? Because I know you work with several business owners. What changes for the business owner after going through a TRA?
It's interesting. It's fun. First of all, we do the TRA. There's two components. One is the kind of the scorecard that we build. So we got 400 data points now on the business. It's like going to the doctor for a head to toe checkup. We got everything from your hair or lack thereof to your toes, right? So we have that, and when we score that, we actually do it. We use a heat map, We use a color coding so that if everything's running well in an area, it'll be green. If everything is off the rails, it'll be red, and then there's variations in between. So normally they say, yeah, I knew we weren't doing well in marketing. I knew we were going to get bad scores there. I had no clue that we weren't doing well in financials. That maybe I thought our financials were just buttoned down, and it turns out they're not. As the basis of this, that we're not meeting. You know, it's not that we're not running gap accounting, which is very hard to do, but we're not even doing best practices in accounting, things like that. So there's usually a two or three surprises that pop out. And sometimes it's the business owner actually saying, I've been the one doing that for the business. And maybe I'm not the best one to do that because you scored me pretty low on that. Or it's like, I turned that over to Sally, 2 years ago, and I just assumed we were doing better in that area. And now you're saying I'm not, or
Right.
we're not. So that's going to maybe cause some problems. So, so we definitely look at it. There's always surprises, we tell people, where your warts are in the business typically, and you work around them, and you kind of put that on. Yeah, I'll get to that one of these days. But sometimes there's things in the business that they have no clue that they're not doing it right, or that they don't meet industry norms, things like that. So that's where I think the TRA is very valuable in bringing those things out. And of course, the second component of that is the evaluation that we do for them. We gather their data, we look at all their organization from all different angles and compare it with their industry, but also just with a well-run company, against a standard. And invariably, the valuation typically comes out a little lower than they anticipated. They heard about friends selling companies, or they knew of transactions that took place, and the guy said, "Oh yeah, so and so bought my company for 10 times earnings or whatever." So it's a sobering conversation sometimes of what the company's really worth.
Right, because at Mastery Group, which is Mastery Partners and two other companies, we all have the belief and know it to be true. In fact, everyone will transition their business.
Yes.
You're not getting out of it without doing that. So that is something the TRA. I've seen this across the business owners that we have helped. They do make decisions differently. The decisions they make are about, does this increase the value? So
Right.
like we talked about the network or the KPIs, we just make different decisions, or the financials even, than if you're just trying to do it or not even look at it like, oh, we're okay.
Yep.
You really do that. And then another component I've seen as I've interacted with our clients is the confidence that they gain. I mean, they already have a ton of confidence. They're running their business, but just in their business acumen and the clarity that comes from, okay, I know what the right decision is. I know what the path is. And if we're veering off the path, they have that confidence to pull back, and to know what they need to focus on. I think
Yeah,
it's huge.
and that's the other thing when we present the results of the TRA too. We will present looking at those. Basically, there's 9 different areas of the business, like I said, from formation to sales, marketing, legal, finance, HR. I mean, there's everything to do with the business. And when we score that, we'll actually say that if you're doing this well, it doesn't affect your business positively or negatively. If you're excelling in this particular area, then that's an add. We'll actually, that will increase the multiple that you will get for this business should you decide to transition out of it. But if you're failing in an area, or if you're just below par, that's a negative. That will hurt your valuation. And we show empirical numbers there that say this hurts your valuation, this is neutral, and this is a plus. And our goal is to try to, by working through um, their once we have established, the kind of the roadmap of what they need to do to increase the value of the business. As we work through that, we periodically update that valuation to see what effect have we had on that.
Yeah.
Is the business more valuable now than it was when we started the process, and why? And what areas did we improve in? And to me, that is the incredible value that we add. Because as we started this conversation, it's like, where do I spend my time? And how do I know where I'm spending my time is effective? And so that roadmap gives us an idea of where to spend your time. And then we can measure the effectiveness of that, as we go. So,
Now, I know you've exited your business. You're part of that 17% of business owners who did it and made it through
yeah.
and got out. But my question is, did you have a value advisor to help you? And would
Uh,
you, yeah,
Not really. I say that there were two things, actually three things that helped me. So one was, and I won't go into a long, long history, but I had a business partner for 20 years, and we ran the business together. We were kind of that rare 50-50 partners that where it actually worked out well. I think we were normally on the same page. We had a few times we were head to head on stuff, but normally, and we did different aspects of the business. So I handled sales and technical side of the business, and he handled the financial side of the business and the operations side, accounting and operations. So we had our division of labor essentially, and then we met for big decisions like we're going to change vendors for something or something like that. We would meet on, but and I lost him suddenly. He had a heart issue, and so then he passed away very suddenly. And we had processes in place for change of control of the business. We had insurance and key man agreements and buy sell agreements and all this kind of stuff. It took a while to sort that out. I won't lie. That was not an easy time. That's a whole nother podcast almost.
yeah,
But we got that resolved. And then I'm running the whole business now. So now I've got like everything, including stuff I've never really done before. I mean, I'd looked at financials, but I hadn't really been responsible for them before.
right.
And so that really was eye-opening for me. At that same time, I joined a Vistage group. So Vistage is a CEO peer group. It's been around since the 1950s. It's very effective, very long lived. It was invaluable to me. So I had 15 other business owners in my group, all who were interested in helping me navigate this whole thing, and helping me keep my business, grow my business, and ultimately help me make the decision to sell the business. So that was good. They were not they weren't in depth. They were more cheerleaders, but they also had some of those had exited businesses. They'd been through the process. They kind of steered me a little bit. They had much larger businesses than mine in most cases, so they helped me there. These are the decisions you need to make to get to be a bigger business, things like that. So that was good. And then I had a great M&A attorney that helped me through the process. So those were, having that outside professional help as well as a peer group, but I didn't have a single value advisor, if you will, to steer me through. And certainly when I got to the transaction itself, there were a lot of things that I should have done earlier that would have increased the value of the business, and I would have had a better outcome. I had a good outcome selling the business. I was not disappointed at all. But I could have had a much better outcome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things you think, oh, I've built the business. I can figure it out. I figured out so many other things.
Yep.
But you can't improve what you can't see and you
Yeah.
don't even know, right?
Yep.
And
Very
I
true.
think, yeah, I think that's the shift. It's okay to get help. Um, and you can do more with more,
Yeah.
right? Uh, but it's really about seeing that your business more clearly. And if you're listening and you're realizing you might not have that full picture of what creates value and what doesn't create value, that in my mind is exactly what the transition readiness assessment is designed to do. Is give you that full picture, understand where you are, and to even begin to know where to go, you need that starting point of what is working and what's not working.
Yeah, there's that. I think just an outside objective look at your company, because no matter how much analysis you do yourself, you're very subjective, and you'll either gloss over things or you'll make excuses for people or for processes that are sort of work but don't quite work or used to work and don't work anymore. There's all that stuff. And then, of course, in the total scheme of things, the transition readiness assessment is just that. It's an assessment. The second part of what we do at Mastery there is the route to value acceleration. So that's actually taking all that data and then building a roadmap and figuring out, how do I now execute against that? How do I take the knowledge I have now, and what steps do I need to take, and what order do I need to take them to actually make my business more valuable and ultimately more transferable? Even if that date may be undetermined or way down the road. But that assessment is the basis, and then the roadmap to me is really the sweet spot. That's the thing, So that and you can definitely track your progress on that. And what we do at Mastery is actually walk alongside when somebody does that. We'll help them execute that roadmap. Find the resources, typically outside their company, to help in many cases, and then constantly take a look at what's the valuation look like. Are the things we're doing having an effect? Are they effective?
Right, because the sooner you see that, uh, the more options you'll have.
Yeah.
Right, the sooner you see, the quicker you are to make those decisions to change or stick with it. It really gives you the confidence to be able to make those decisions.
The other thing is, I mean, going back to our original premise, it really guides you where to spend your time, as the business owner. It might be that rather than solving a technical problem, that your best deal right now is to be in front of 2 or 3 bankers and secure some lines of credit to fund the growth that is coming. So and that may not be your most desired activity, is to meet with bankers, right? But that's where you need to be. And so that's where I think the magic is where do I spend my time? Who do I depend on to help? What should I be tasking my team with? One thing that I definitely, in retrospect, looking at my company, I know this to be the fact. I did not ask my team to work harder. There were areas where they were willing and able to take on more responsibility, and I didn't ask them to do it. And I don't know why. I don't know if it was like fear of, what if we go down this road and it doesn't work out? Or it was like, I feel like they're working really hard already. Or maybe I'll have to pay them a lot more if they ask, if they're doing a lot more. Well, I should have gladly paid them a lot more to do a lot more. So, it's that was eye-opening, really, when I did that kind of look back. There's things I could have done better, for sure.
Yeah. Well, if you in today's conversation gave you something to think about, and you think I need a full picture, you can learn more about that process, the TRA, RVA that Dave mentioned, at masterypartners.com. I know this conversation gave me a lot to think about and to do, because because
Because you just don't have enough to do, Kim.
well, yeah, there are some things there that I definitely am putting in the drawer because I don't want to deal with.
Yeah.
That I know is and that's the other thing. I know it's costing me. It's
Sure.
so
Yeah.
we just but talking about it and bringing it to the forefront definitely makes you, oh, I need to deal with that.
Yeah.
And move on. And it's sometimes even not as big a project as you think it is. You build it up in your head and it's just not,
Mhm.
it's not as big as all that. But Dave, thank you. Brilliant as usual. I appreciate your perspective and always learn so much from your experience. And to the business owner who submitted that question, thank you. That was a good one. And to you, the business owner listening, thanks for being a part of this. If you're asking these questions, good for you. You're ahead of the curve there. If you found this helpful, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And till next time, keep maximizing business value. See ya.
All right, take care.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Maximize Business Value podcast. I hope today's conversation sparked new ideas on how you can continue driving value in your business. But remember, it's not just about listening. It's about taking massive action. Visit our website, masterypartners.com, for more resources. Grab a copy of any of the books in the Maximize Business Value series on Amazon or via the links below. And don't hesitate to reach out if you want to know how to apply these concepts to your business. So until next time, I'm Tom Bronson, reminding you to relentlessly execute while you maximize business value.